This is on remortgaging your own home to get into property. Now, if you're someone that's got equity and you're looking to remortgage and invest it, perfect. If you're someone that has equity and you're looking to just refinance and not do anything with that money, please do that. If you're not going to invest in property, you're not going to use the money to build a skill or make more money, just leave the money in your property. But if you're someone that's looking to get into property, I'm going to go through these documents here. Hopefully you can get value from them. It's going to be the benefits to why you should, the full process, and then maybe what you should do when you get the money in your bank. Okay? So starting out here, why remortgage or refinance your property? Now, a lot of people believe that they don't have the money because they don't have the money in their bank, they can't get started. A lot of people, having your home is your biggest uncovered asset. It's growing every single year in the background whilst you're working, whilst you're doing whatever. If you've bought your own home, it is growing in equity every year. Typically in Wales, you're looking at 3 to 5% annually that is increasing. So, you leave that for 5 years, you're going to be in a really good place. Or if you've bought a property in the last 2 years and you've put a new kitchen and a new bathroom in, you're going to have equity in it, right? But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that later on too. So you may have, and this is another reason why, you could remortgage. You may have fixed your term when the interest rate was more, 5.5%, 6%. It's currently lower. So over a 5-year term, you could save thousands. It's currently at around 4% now. So, you think 1.5 or 2% isn't, if you think that isn't much, you'll be surprised with the amount of money that you'll save in years. You'll save thousands of pounds, right? So let's talk about the negatives first. Negatives. So if you're thinking about remortgaging the property and you don't have a clear plan of how to use it or how to go and deploy it, because what will happen is you'll remortgage and you will just leave that money sitting in your bank. Now, that is probably the worst thing you can do because it's just going to erode over time and your buying power dies or gets less every single year, right? So again, leaving the money just sit in the bank, don't do that, please. You're better off not remortgaging if you're not going to use it. You go and spend thousands of pounds on a new car and holidays. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're in a position where you pull, 40,000+ pounds or 50,000+ pounds and you want to go on holiday, look, I'm not going to tell you not to go on holiday. You need to go and do what you want to do, right? But I think it's so important that you also invest that money. Yes, you need to enjoy it, but only here for a short period of time, right? So enjoy the money, but also make sure you are investing it because otherwise it will just whittle down like that. And you would have, increased your debt and not made any money from it. You may have had experiences, but you're not going to make any money. And that's what we're aiming to do when we remortgage our properties, okay? Again, thinking that you're doing well. You've got cash sitting in the bank, but in reality, it's just deteriorating over time. And when we remortgage, we want to be looking to either build a skill, so invest in knowledge to be able to go and make more money, or you learn how to start investing in property properly, where you don't have to be an expert to get into property, but you do need to understand a few things of when you're buying, what you're buying, what strategy you're going to use. So yeah, that's the negatives out the way, okay? Benefits now. So you'll build another stream of income through flipping properties. So flipping is a strategy that you can use where you buy a property, add value, and sell it. You can build generational wealth for yourself and for your family. You can leave your kids in a stronger position than what you ever had. Because if you've got young children now, you've got, older children, if you can start buying assets, do you think that that's going to help them when, unfortunately we all, we're not here for a long time, like I said, in 100 years, we'll all be dead. So are you going to leave something for your kids or their kids, to have a better life than what you have? That's the whole point of this, right? Takes pressure off you as you're now receiving rent every month from properties. So if you invest correctly or invest the money that you've remortgaged correctly, you'll now be receiving £400, £600 a month from these properties that you're now renting out. Okay, £400 to £600 a month isn't going to change your life, of course, but will it help pay the bills? Of course it will. Now, if you have 4 of these, is that going to make a difference? Of course. And then you get you to a stage in 2, 3, 4, 5 years where you're not so reliant now on work because you've got passive income coming in from the properties that you've purchased. Okay? Comes your pension. So, if you don't have a pension or you're not paying into a pension now, it's so important that you're trying to build a property portfolio, because over time, you're going to have capital appreciation, prices are going to increase without you doing anything. You don't have to be an expert to get into property. You just need to buy right, know what you're buying, and buy assets, really. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you have more security. If you ever get sick or you can't work, you've got your property portfolio to fall back on. That's going to be able to pay you every single month. As I've mentioned before, you invest into learning a skill that can go and make more money. Now, if you're not going to get into property and you're watching this and you're not thinking about getting into property, great. Also, the other way you can use it is invest into yourself to be able to go and make more money. How to build a business, how to add another arm to a business, how to become a better all-round business person, okay? And be all and end all is tax-free money. You can use it as leverage. If you are gonna use it, it's tax-free money. So you're taking on debt on your own property, of course, and you're gonna pay a little bit more every month for the mortgage. But we'll talk about the example a little bit later on. But I would rather have £45,000 or £50,000 in my pocket and pay an extra £150 a month on my mortgage. That's just me personally. May not be for you. Going into the process of how this works, right? So this is a bit of a process. It does look a little bit more daunting than what it actually is. But yeah, so you need to assess your current position. Before you do anything, you need to know your numbers. You need to have an idea of what you think you can remortgage for. Now, you can do this by speaking to estate agents, obviously comparables on Rightmove. I'd speak to a mortgage broker. In essence, just speak to a mortgage broker and they'll be able to help you too, right? So you need to understand your current mortgage balance. How much do you still owe? If you have a mortgage, if you own properties cash, or you own them cash, and over the last 10 years or whatever, you've paid off your mortgage, awesome. You may be sitting on £300,000 worth of equity here, and you're still working a 9 to 5, worrying about what you're only earning £2,500 a month, or £3,000 a month, or £4,000 a month, when you've got so much equity in your property that if you were to go and deploy that into property, you could easily replace your income, especially with that amount of money. £100,000, you can get into this and start doing really, really good things. Okay, so yeah, speak to a broker, estate agents, find out what they think your property's valued at. Understand the equity you have available. This is the difference between your property value now and what's owed. So I'll go into an example a little bit. So this is an example here, sorry. Your home's worth £400,000. Your mortgage is £250,000. That means you have equity of £150K. So that means if you wanted to, you could pull £150K, or 90% of £400,000. Okay? So yeah, you get a redemption figure then from your bank, understanding how much you do owe on the property, as I mentioned. If you've recently got a new mortgage fixed for 5 years, but you want to remortgage now, it will probably cost you to exit. So this is called an early redemption fee. It can be £10,000. It can be a lot less. So again, speak to a broker, understand what the redemption figure is going to be. I mean, if it's going to be £2,000, but you're going to be able to pull £100,000, is that worth it? In my opinion, all day. Okay. If you're on a variable rate or fixed 2 years mortgage, you can typically get off these for free. So if you have a fixed term of 2 years, but you've added a new kitchen, a new bathroom, and you want to remortgage it, then you will be able to do it typically for free, maybe a small fee. Okay. So other fees that you're going to have a valuation fee. If the lender that you're getting a new mortgage from, they want to come out and view your property to make sure that it is worth what you're saying. If you're usually going with the same lender, they don't always say that you need to have another valuation done. They basically give you the money. You'd have some admin fees with your broker. You'd have some admin fees with the solicitors, and also, legal fees. So around £1,000 to £1,500 you're going to pay for these fees. Okay. So the goal here: work out how much equity you can release. Lenders will usually allow up to 75% on a buy-to-let mortgage. Obviously, we're using a buy-to-let mortgage, and 90% of the residential mortgage. So typically on a residential mortgage, you're going to put 10% down, you're going to have a 90% mortgage. Obviously, depending on your credit rate and the product type too. So there are going to be they are going to want to have some details from you. What you earn, what you're currently earning. Can you afford to pay that extra little bit of money every month? But they will give you a credit check, which is normal. Second, review your options. So once you know your equity, it's time to shop around for the best remortgage deal. You can do this in two ways. You can use a whole of market mortgage brokers, as I mentioned, or research lenders directly. Now, speaking to lenders directly, I typically haven't done this, and wouldn't say for you to do it, because mortgage brokers do this day in, day out. They're experts. They're going to have better relationships with lenders, and they're going to be able to get you better rates. Okay. So yeah, find the best product, lowest payment, max cash release, depending on how much you actually want to pull out this equity. So again, your broker's going to help you with this, and the full way through this, basically, a mortgage broker is going to hold your hand all the way through it. So it's not strenuous stuff, guys. It is some paperwork that you're going to have to do, but it's not rocket science. Okay. So your broker or lender will submit a formal remortgage application, including proof of income. So this is from you, your pay slips or your company accounts if you're self-employed, current mortgage statement, ID and proof of address, property valuation agreed by a new lender. So that's normal. The lender then will conduct a valuation survey and assess your affordability. Once approved, they'll make you a mortgage offer outlining the loan amount, rate, term, and condition. Fine. Last step, completion and release. So once the offer is accepted, your solicitor or the lender's legal team will handle the legal transfer from your old lender to your new one. This is typically, I say 6 to 8 weeks, can be a little bit longer too, depending on the lender and the solicitor's efficiency. After completion, obviously your old mortgage will be paid off either by a new lender, or the same lender will just renew it. The new mortgage replaces it. Any released equity, cash is sent to your bank account. So you'll receive funds, and then you can use them strategically, for example, to purchase your next property. So this is a brief example of what this could actually look like. Okay, so you bought the property for £100,000. You put 10% down as a deposit. So you put £10,000 down. Your redemption figure or your current mortgage is £90,000 that you have on the property. You've left it 5 years, for instance, or you've left it 3 years and you've put a new kitchen in, or you've left it for 5 years. Your new valuation is £150,000, but you only have a mortgage of £100,000. That means you've got equity, right? So that means you can remortgage 90% of the 150K, meaning this figure is now your new mortgage. That becomes your new mortgage, and this is put in your pocket, £45,000. Okay? If you can't understand that, guys, just go back through it and you'll be able to get it. So what happens next? Oh, I've got this wrong. Well, you will get a new mortgage where the £90,000 will get paid off, and the excess of £45,000 will be put in your pocket. So this is the old mortgage, and now this is going to be put in your pocket because you've raised the value. So a simple way to work out how much your new mortgage payments are going to be. So I speak to loads of people, and they're worried about, I'm not going to be able to afford the payments. I'm not going to be able to afford the monthly payments, blah, blah, blah. And now this does depend on your job as well, right? But for instance, in this example, where you're going to pull £45,000 out of your property, currently right now, the interest rate is 4%. Good. Very good. Okay. So the way that you work this out is you would do £45,000 times 4% gives you £1,800 annually. So how do you break that up into monthly payments? Well, you divide it by 12. So £1,800 divided by 12 is £150 a month on top of what your current mortgage is. So if your current mortgage is £500, you're now going to pay £650 instead. But you're going to have £45,000 in your pocket. You have to weigh up whether you think that's worth it or not for you. But as I mentioned, always have an idea of what you're actually going to use this money for before you remortgage. Because if you don't have a plan, then don't do it, okay? And for any of you that are interested, I do have an education system that you can come through, and I can teach you about all of these property strategies and help you do them effectively when you do remortgage your property, okay? So how are you going to use this capital? You've got three options if you want to invest in property. You can either use a buy-to-let strategy. This is where you buy a property with a 25% deposit. So an example of this, if you have a £100,000 property, you'll put £25,000 as a deposit. You will have to pay some stamp duty and legal fees too. But you could buy a buy-to-let and then just simply rent the property out. So you'll pay your interest-only mortgage, and then you'll receive cash flow when you rent the property from the tenant. So what's the benefit of this? Well, you're going to receive cash flow and capital appreciation. So that £45,000 that you have in the bank, you've now used it to buy a £100,000 property. So that's increasing your net worth, and it's also giving you cash flow and capital appreciation, something for you to leave behind for your family and stuff like that, okay? How are you going to use this? Well, you've got it when you're looking to buy property, you are going to be buying a limited company. Now this is going to be a whole different video, right guys? But buying a limited company always. If you want investment properties, buy in a limited company. So you're simply going to put a 25% deposit down. You don't have to do any development. You need to make sure that obviously you buy the correct property. It doesn't need loads of work. Or, you could still buy a property and add some sort of value in your kitchen, your bathroom, if you had the money spare. So in essence, you could buy a £100,000 property with 25 grand plus your fees, probably say 30 grand, 32 grand. So you can own an asset which pays you as capital appreciation. Perfect, right? So now you're starting to store your money in property, in stuff that's going to appreciate over time and build a pension pot for you, or leave something behind for your family, help you financially, okay? Next, buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. So this is my favorite strategy, and this is a strategy that I've used now for 7 years, and I've managed to build a £3 million portfolio by doing this simple strategy. So you basically buy a property which is run down. You can either buy it full cash or you can use bridging finance. So bridging finance is going to be there's another video on my YouTube regarding bridging finance, but that's basically where you put 25% down as a deposit. You have a loan of 75% of the purchase price, and then you have to pay your interest and arrangement fees it's basically short-term lending. Instead of a normal mortgage, which you would use in a buy-to-let here, you use short-term lending, which is called bridging finance, to get into a deal where you do development. So anyway, you buy a property using cash or bridging, you complete the renovation on the property. So, you may go back to brick on the property, maybe damp everywhere. You may have to go back to brick and run a damp system or damp-proof system, or treat the damp, sorry. You may have to have new windows, you may have to have new flooring, repaint the property, add new door frames, new doors, kitchen, bathroom. There's loads of stuff of how you can add value, okay? And then what will happen when you completed the renovation is you'll refinance the property at the higher value. So you bought it for £100,000, you spent £50,000 on the renovation. Now you've pushed the value up to £200,000. What does this mean? Well, now you're going to get a buy-to-let mortgage on the buy refurbish finance property. So you get a buy-to-let mortgage of 75%. You leave 25% in as a deposit, and then you recycle your cash and buy again. So using the buy refurbish finance, you can get a better return on your money than a normal buy-to-let, but it does involve development. Okay. So once you've refinanced the property, you're then going to rent the property out. So you're going to have a tenant in the property paying you rent, and you're also going to have capital appreciation again. So depending on what your exit is going to be here, you could either use no single let with a normal family, you could use service accommodation, you could use HMOs, you could use supported living, social housing. There's loads of things that you can use, or tenants you can use to go in your properties. Okay, so it's all about how much money you really want to go and make as well on this back end, because property out. So you have 2 to 3 options of what you can actually do with the property. So potentially the 3 that I usually go by is a single let, service accommodation unit, or can I flip the property? Having 3 exit strategies is so important. So the benefit of obviously buy, refurbish, finance, again, you're going to receive cash flow and capital appreciation. So these 2 strategies, you're basically looking to build a property portfolio. And this last strategy, which is flipping, is where it's the same process as buy, refurbish, finance. You buy a property that's run down using full cash or bridging. You can also use investor finance as well, guys, but that's going to be in another video. Investor finance too. Complete the renovation on the property. So know how to add value. Are you adding a downstairs toilet? Can you add an ensuite? There's loads of stuff that you can do to push the value up on the property. Then you sell the property for a profit. So you can make in excess of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 pounds. So, this can replace your day job. If you are looking to replace your day job, I would advise you to potentially start getting into flips, because you can earn big chunks of cash, right? So if you are currently in a position where you're earning £20,000 a year or £30,000 a year, but you have equity in your property, well, you could refinance that property, go and buy an asset, add value, and sell it and make £20,000 to £30,000 fairly simply. So yeah, this is build the cash for bigger deals, replace your day job. So this is a breakdown, guys, of what you can do. These are 3 strategies that are investment strategies. There are other strategies out there like deal source and rent to rent, where it's not as much capital in initially that you can use, but these are basically the 3 strongest if you have cash to go and invest. You want to start either building a property portfolio or flipping properties. So if you are interested in this, guys, please make sure to reach out to me. And I'd love to sit in the call, help you where I can, and help you deploy this capital. So thanks for watching. I shall see you in the next one.